Good evening, everyone. By my watch, I'm at 6:30. So we'll get started. Bonne soirée à tous et bienvenue à cette audience publique du Comité de dérogation pour la Ville d'Ottawa. Welcome everyone to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. So just a couple of opening remarks. The Committee of Adjustment, as many of you know, is a quasi-judicial tribunal, and it's appointed by City Council. So everyone here this evening is appointed by Council to make decisions on certain types of planning applications under the Planning Act. And in our case, most notably, it's minor variances and consents, although there are a few others. My name is Anne Tremblay, and I will be chairing this hearing this evening, but with me tonight are also my fellow panelists. So Ms. Kathleen Willis, Ms. Julia Markovich, Mr. Colin White, and Mr. Scott Hindle. Also with us tonight is our very capable committee staff, so I'd like to welcome them as well and recognize their contribution this evening. So we have our Deputy Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Matthew Garnett. We also have a number of coordinators that make all of the magic happen behind the scenes. We have Ms. Emily Byers. We have Ms. Mandy Nguyen, and Ms. Maddie Herman Fernandez. Sorry about that, Maddie. Okay, so you probably noticed that there to the left of your screen there's a live on YouTube. So this is being live streamed to YouTube. If you want to either look at this later, if you missed parts for whatever reason, you can always access the video as well as the agenda on the Committee of Adjustments webpage. All you need to do is go to the City of Ottawa website, and you'll find it there. There are a number of issues that we deal with as a committee dealing with minor variances or consents that are out of our jurisdiction. So when things come up, certain elements come up, we have to, in fact, not consider them as part of our decision. So I'm going to give you some examples of what that is. So any aspects of the proposal that actually isn't part of the application. So we really are here to make decisions on those elements of the application that need relief from the zoning bylaw or are the subject of the consent or the permission. If it's not on the application, if it's a massing concern you have or a height concern you have, and it's not relief that's being requested, we really can't deal with those matters. They're not before us. They're deemed to conform to the zoning bylaw, no relief. So really very narrow focus on the application. We also don't consider any issues regarding noise, pollution, property maintenance, property values, illegal construction. So we deal with everything as if no construction has occurred. We also will not entertain any negative, adverse comments about either the applicant, the owner, any neighbors, anyone, in fact, involved in these proceedings. So just a reminder for everybody to keep respectful and to only speak when you've been recognized by the chair as having the floor. The only other thing I want to mention is at times, as we discuss the application, we may find that either an additional minor variance is required or that additional relief, so greater relief from the zoning bylaw is required. In those cases, we need to essentially adjourn the application to a later date in order to allow either the application for a minor variance or for a recirculation on greater relief being required. So as part of the statutory requirements, each application has to essentially post a sign on a property and then file a statutory declaration about that sign posting. The declaration must be on file before we can actually hear that application. So I believe in this case we have none that have been submitted. So what we have been doing in an online format is to essentially take verbal declarations through an oath or a solemn declaration. So we will be doing that for the applications that we will be hearing before hearing those applications this evening. With respect to quorum, if we lose quorum for whatever reason, so we are 5 this evening, that would be unusual that we would lose, unless there was a terrible storm affecting us all, that we would lose three people essentially is what we'd have to lose. So we haven't very thankfully had that happen at all at this point. So, but if it does, what we will do is step down the items that have not been heard and decided upon to the very next the very next hearing of the committee, and they'll be added to the agenda, and we'll deal with those likely first ahead of the new applications. So listed on the screen when you first joined was a copy of the, or essentially the agenda for this evening. Those items are essentially listed in the order that they're received in the office. So they don't, there's nothing special about the order other than that. However, the committee chair does, or the panel chairs do have the discretion to move some of those elements away or around. So in our case this evening, we're going to deal with adjournments, but I think for the most part, we're going to follow the order of the agenda. So we've also adopted another another tradition, I guess, a new tradition for us in terms of fast tracking items. So in that case, we will not ask for a presentation, and we will go straight to questions for clarification by the committee. Where there are presentations, and I understand that most presentations have been submitted, and we will ask the owner, the applicant, or the agent to actually do that presentation. So I have a speakers list, and so for those people, I have their address, their names, and their address. Once we've had either a presentation or the committee has had a chance to ask clarifying questions about the application, then we go to the public portion. If your name isn't already on that speakers list, it's not a problem. You can still address the committee, but at that point, I will need you to start your comments to us with your full name and your municipal address. And then that's just to make sure that we have it on the record, and then we can proceed from there. The committee may find that they want to ask you some questions and get some clarification about some of your comments. So if that happens, that's fine. We'll let you know not to run away too quickly, and we'll get that part done. Once all of the issues have been tabled and we've had a chance to get some answers from either the agent or owner or from our planning staff or forestry staff, at that point we will essentially close the public portion, and then we deliberate. And then the committee, once they've completed their deliberation, sometimes it's very quick, because we do have a chance to look at all this information before we get here. So we look at the information before today, and then we have a pre-meet so that we get all of the additional information that we may have missed. So we have a lot. Sometimes it goes fast, but we normally make an oral decision. So we can either deny, obviously, or grant your application. Sometimes, or we can adjourn, but sometimes we reserve. If there's an application that's had a lot of new evidence provided, particularly through the public portion, then the committee may decide that it wants to reserve at that point. And then it doesn't mean we don't make a decision. It just means that we don't make a decision right at that time. You will, however, in all cases, get a written decision from the committee outlining the reasons for our decision. That has to be done by regulation within 10 days of the hearing. And then there's an opportunity for anyone who disagrees with the decision of the committee to appeal within 20 days. You have a 20-day appeal period once you've received the decision, and you can appeal that decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, I believe is the name at this point. So that's it. That's the instructions for tonight. With that, then I'm going to turn to, we don't have any minutes to adopt, so we can go to declarations of conflict of interest for any items either on tonight's agenda or on the agendas of either panel 1 or 3 earlier today. Mr. White, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to declare interest on some items, 3 items specifically on panel that have been dealt with by panel number 3. Item number 1 for 6470 Dwyer Hill Road. Item number 9 for 1534 Dwyer Hill Road, and item number 10 8921 on Mullock Street. Those items, I am currently involved in some projects working as a sub-consultant for the agent on that application, and I therefore deem it appropriate that I declare interest on those 3 items.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else? I don't believe I heard from anyone else. Okay, all right. And that then is the items of business. So we can go straight to the adjournments at this point. And we have 2 for sure, possibly 3. So we have number 7, which is for 820 Grenon Avenue. And I believe I'm looking for Mr. Ireland, and I've seen him already arrive to the meeting. So if we can bring him on to the panel side so we can speak with him.
James Ireland, I'm here. Do you need something from me? I missed the slide.
Well, so Mr. Ireland, can you come on camera? We can't see you.
It's me.
Hi there.
Hi.
Good evening. So you are aware that there is a request from planning to adjourn this application?
Yes,
correct?
I am aware. Yes.
All right. Okay. And any comments with regards to that? Can you tell us why we're adjourning the application?
The planner on the file requested an adjournment so that we can provide evidence of the legal non-conforming use, which is something we're working on at the moment.
All right. Okay. Sounds good. I guess, would you be looking for an adjournment sine die on this?
Well, I should let you know as well that we requested an adjournment separately to revise the application slightly. So it depends on circulation, really. It probably needs to be recirculated, but I mean, obviously we'd like it as soon as possible, be guided by the coordinator.
So, Mr. Ireland, I think what I'd be tempted to do, given that you're looking at revising the application, there's evidence that you need to submit. One way or the other, you're looking at a recirculation. So I think I'd be tempted to just adjourn this one sine die. Doesn't mean that it prolongs the time frame for you to come back. It's just that it leaves it a little more open, and that notice will go back out. So would you be willing to accept a sine die adjournment?
Yes, that would be fine. We have refiled the application yesterday, so the committee has it, but sine die is acceptable, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ireland. Any questions from the committee members at this point? All right. Anyone in the audience want to speak either for or against this adjournment sine die? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So with that, then, Mr. Ireland, we wish you good luck in getting all of that, the evidence together and getting the new application package. It sounds like it's already in. We haven't seen it, of course, but I hope we see you again soon.
Sure, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next application is number 8 for 900 Waters Road. I believe I'm looking for Tamara Nahal. Good evening.
Good evening.
So Ms. Nahal, you're aware that there is a request for adjournment on this application?
Yeah, so we did speak with the planner earlier, and I believe, I see her joining now. Lucy, would you like to speak to that so that I don't explain it for you?
All right, Ms. Ramirez, the purpose of the adjournment is, oh, sorry, you're on mute, Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of the adjournment was to allow for more time for the site plan to progress. However, staff and the applicant have had some discussions, and staff is comfortable with the application proceeding tonight if the approval is worded to allow for modifications during the site plan control process.
Where's that process at, Ms. Ramirez? Because
so we've received the second submission and staff have reviewed it. We're still waiting on a few comments still and some issue resolution before I issue my comments back to the applicant for them to then look at the third submission.
Okay, so in your mind, we just want to make sure, of course, that we're dealing with the full like their full application, whatever their requirements would be. Are you satisfied that we're capturing that sufficiently now?
I am.
Okay, all right. There's also some comments from forestry regarding a number of trees, the removal of which is avoidable. So I must admit, I'm not sure why further discussion on that is not required. If we deal with this tonight, then that issue is not being resolved. So can you tell me what happened with that?
So staff got some initial comments from the forester who reviewed the site plan application. They identified trees to protect. We did get some additional information from the infill forester as well regarding trees to be protected, and we'll pass on those comments along to the applicant in our second round of submissions as well, and see if they can do some modifications to allow for any retention.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Is Ms. Young with us? Yes, I see Ms. Young. Can you join the discussion, please? So Ms. Young, I see that you have you've identified quite a number of trees for which removal is avoidable, and I just want your thoughts on that and whether or not you think additional time might be of advantage to you and the applicant in terms of maybe retaining some of those trees.
Yep. I think my initial comments were, I was thinking that the tree impacts were related more to the minor variances being sought, but it turns out they aren't. They're in different locations. So I'm working with my colleagues in forestry to work through the site plan process to deal with the tree impacts. So I think this really is more appropriately dealt with through site plan and development review rather than here.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to confirm that, given the comments in the planning report we received. So, all right. So in that case, am I hearing we're dealing with this application tonight? Ms. Nahal?
Yes, we've had some productive conversations with Ms. Ramirez with the project team. And we also understand that she is seeking some of the approvals to be tied to the plan. So we do understand that Ms. Ramirez is looking for the approvals to be generally tied to the plans. We're in agreement that they can be generally tied as long as it provides some flexibility just to finalize that site plan. Just as you've heard, there's a few site plan related details that are just being resolved right now. But we have had a few conversations and we do feel that the minor variance is at a point where we should be able to proceed tonight. We've been working through a lot of the site plan issues. And the previous adjournment was to resolve those site plan questions and bring it up to a point where the application could be heard tonight. So on our side, we feel as though those site plan questions have been either answered or an answer will be resolved in the future revisions, and that the site plan is far enough along that the minor variance discussion today wouldn't, any discussion on the minor variance wouldn't result in major changes to site plan. So I would feel comfortable proceeding today, and my understanding with Ms. Ramirez was that we were on the same page there as well.
All right, thank you. In which case, no adjournment request. I'm putting this back in the mix of applications to be heard. So we'll see you a little bit later this evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so with that then, I just have to make sure I don't forget that one. All right, there is one that we do want to speak to the agent about. It's for number 5. 163 Long Prairie. I'm looking for Mr. George Farah. And I think we're going to want to hear from Ms. Ramirez on this as well. And I might even start with you, Ms. Ramirez, while we wait for Mr. Farah to come forward. Do we have, just to the coordinators before I launch into this discussion, is Mr. Farah joined us? All right, I do see him there. All right, come on forward, Mr. Farah. So, Ms. Ramirez, we're a little bit perplexed at some of your comments regarding the survey plan. With the application, it says talking about essentially, let me just read this too. Staff was unable to complete a more detailed zoning bylaw review because no setbacks were shown on the survey plan and no site plan or elevation. So, and then the comment essentially goes on to suggest that possibly there, we can rely on the building permit zoning review that was done. How comfortable are you with that, Ms. Ramirez, having not had a chance to check the conformity yourself?
There is, thank you for the question, Madam Chair. There is a zoning review that happens as part of the building permit so that the plans are reviewed to be in conformity at that stage, and the building permit is generally not issued it is not issued if there is not conformity with the zoning bylaw. I looked at the plans that were submitted in terms of the lot area and the lot width, because that is something that we look at. And that's also something that's looked at during the building permit phase. And so I was able to determine that the application complied with lot width and lot area requirements, but I wasn't able to do much more of a zoning review than from that.
All right. So you're relying on the building division people's review. Okay, and do they ever consult? Did anybody consult with you on this, Ms. Ramirez, as part of that review?
No, generally they do their review on their own, and in the zone you are permitted to build a semi-detached regardless of whether it is going to be subdivided. And so they'll do their review, and then they'll issue their building permit, and then sometimes we go back and forth with each other if we have questions on how did you interpret this or how are you interpreting that. But no, for issuing the building permit, they don't talk to me.
All right. So, and in your mind, is this straightforward enough that there wouldn't be necessarily the need for an exchange? I'm just trying to figure out the complexity of this to make sure that we can rely on the zoning review that was done from the building code services people.
Yeah, to me, it's straightforward enough that we can rely on that. And I know that we have in the past had some provisions regarding interior side yard that sometimes get missed in certain R2 zones, but here it's 1.2 for semi-detached. It's fairly clear. So that's something that this proposal would comply with.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. So, Mr. Farah, the only comment I'd make to you is we're prepared to proceed based on that that confirmation from staff, but it's always more prudent to make sure that staff do their own zoning compliance review. So if there's any issues that come up in the future, then what's going to happen is that you'll be back before the committee with whatever that additional relief would be. So just a word of caution on that. Okay. In that case, any questions from any of the members of the committee on this? We're satisfied we're going to hear this one? All right. Okay. So no adjournment on that. Okay. Very good. Back to our regular order at this point. Let's start with number 1. So we've got number 1 for Boris Sokane Road. I have no idea if that's the right pronunciation, but it's 3555, looking for Mr. Fernandez. Mr. Fernandez, have we got? I think that's the person we're looking for. Agent for the applicant. Coordinators, do we have?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Deneen Whiting. I'm an articling student with Mr. Fernandez, and we're collectively the agent for the owner.
All right, is Mr. Fernandez here this evening?
Hi there. I'm Deneen Whiting. I'm an articling student with Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, so my question, good evening. Sorry, and your name again, if you could please. So I need your full name. It's for the
Deneen.
record. Denise?
Deneen, yeah.
Deneen, oh, sorry. Can you spell that out for me, please?
D-A-N.
Yep.
E-N-E.
E-N-E, and your last name is?
Whiting, W-H-I-T.
Yep. I-N-G?
Yep.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay. And just for the record, is Mr. Fernandez joining you this evening?
He's available just by email right now. So
All
he won't
right.
be.
Okay, thank you then. All right, we're not going to be requesting a presentation this evening on this, but I'm going to turn it over to questions directly to our panel member. Oh, sorry, and my apologies. Ms. Whiting, I need to read something to you.
Sure.
So this is the verbal oath, right? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was at all times legible and visible? Can you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that to be true.
All right, thank you. Back over to questions then from the committee members. Anything? Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, if the applicant is aware of the conditions that have been requested by planning staff attached to their report, if there's any issues with those conditions. They relate to site servicing plan and the entering into an agreement with the city with respect to things like noise, etc. Are there any issues with those two conditions?
No, we have no issues with those conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? Okay. In terms of speakers, I have no one on, so I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this application? Now's your chance. Just raise your hand and we can bring you in. Takes a few minutes. So we just have to give it a couple of seconds. Well, a moment, I suppose. All right, and I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So with that, then committee members need to go to a vote. All those in favor? All right, for the record, the vote, the application is granted unanimously. And we talked about the conditions already. So thank you very much, Ms. Whiting. I think your job is done for tonight.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Have a nice evening.
All right, you too. Bye now. All right, application number 2. Looking for Mr. Segreto on 118 Gratton, or Granton, I guess.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Good evening, Mr. Segreto. I'm going to read to you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted first at the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear.
All right, thank you very much. Not looking for a presentation from you on this this evening. Questions from the committee? We can go straight there. Not seeing any questions from the committee. Okay, I think we've seen a few of these applications. Maybe that's why. Not too many questions. All right, in which case I am going to go to the public portion then of the hearing at this point. And I do have 2 members of the public that are on my sheet, Ms. Nancy Wilson and Ms. Jill Pratt. Ms. Wilson, I think we can start with you if you'd like.
Okay, I think I'll pick it up for Jill too, so it's not a very long presentation, this one. So good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. First of all, we just want to say our normal thing about the new OP, and like to remind everybody that planners and the applicants that any provisions under the new OP should not be considered until such time as the required secondary plans and new zoning bylaws are enacted. With respect to this application, the only concern that Cityview Community Association has identified is the request for reduced frontages and lot areas. We did meet with the developer, Mr. Segreto, and it's nice to be able to talk to him, and we discussed our concerns. Before tests, the Cityview Community Association still maintains that the requested variances to facilitate the development of these 2 detached dwellings on undersized lots does not meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The official plans policies encourage infill and intensification, but the provisions of the zoning bylaw, R1FF, will reflect greater limits on the character of the residential infill. They have not been updated to reflect the same intent. These variances are not minor. It is unfortunate that this block of Granton, which has once afforded family bungalows, has been changed dramatically and permanently due to these massive infills on severed small lots. This is an example of why the community objects to these developments outside of our existing bylaw. Although the precedents are not allowed to be considered, these huge infills have irrefutably changed the character of our neighborhood. Perfectly good, solid, affordable homes are now being torn down for the benefit of the developers' profits. It's criminal to see these homes demolished. And we sent a link to you so that you could see that, what the house that was there and how good it was and what happened to it went into the ground. The trees, we just wanted to make a note about the trees. We do note that there's only one red maple on the property, and it's going to be taken down because it's diseased, I guess. However, in January 2022, we received complaints from the neighbors that a bulldozer was knocking down all the trees on the lot and plowing them under. So again, trees gone before things happen. Please note that the areas for tree canopy and city view are limited compared to many other communities. Because of ditches, trees cannot be planted along the roads on the city property at the front of houses. Also, above ground power lines and wires reduce the location that trees can be planted. The infrastructure, we've talked about the infrastructure many times, so I won't go through all of that. You guys are all well aware of that. Each of these new infills on the smaller lots are being sold for over 1.5 million, and this is increasing the property taxes to over 12,000 plus per house for each year. A property that once generated about $4,000 in property taxes now provides approximately 25,000 annually. Also, the city has now imposed additional fees on water bills for storm sewers, even though City View doesn't have them. Yet we reap no benefits from these. Again, a question to the city is where developers and residents are asking where all these fees are being spent. Why are they not being spent in City View? And then lastly, just a note on cash in lieu. Again, this property, we didn't get any cash in lieu from, nothing for the parkland funds in this fund. This needs to be addressed. And we'd like to thank you for listening to our concerns and suggestions. That's it. Thank you.
So Ms. Wilson, thank you for your presentation, and we couldn't agree with you more on the loss of cash in lieu and on a number of the items that you have raised. As you know, that's not our jurisdiction. I know you know that. So there's not much that we can do to help you in that regard, but we do hear you on the creation of additional infill and the impact that that has accumulatively just in terms of the character of the neighborhood. So thanks for that. Any questions from the committee to Ms. Wilson before I go to Ms. Pratt? All right. Ms. Pratt, did you want to address the committee?
No, I think Nancy's covered everything that we wanted to say. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So I think that's, so I only have the two of you on the committee, the City View Community Association. But I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who has an interest in this application and would like to address the committee? Now is your chance. Give it a minute. Mr. White, I'll come back to you in a moment. I just want to make sure that we have. All right. I'm not seeing anybody else come forward, so go ahead, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just noticed an interesting comment in the planning report with respect to the impact on the community density that these types of applications are having. And specifically, the report advises that the intensification of the property will increase the density from 11 dwelling units per hectare to 22 dwellings units per hectare. I'm having, as you know, I have a very difficult time with these applications, and the comment that essentially what points to a doubling of density in this community every time we deal with one of these and approve one of them is very concerning to me. And I'm just surprised that planning staff doesn't have some concern with the fact that these applications are essentially applying a new subdivision over top of an existing subdivision of equal size without any evidence that I've seen, at least, and the community association has alluded to this problem, without any kind of comprehensive review of things like the infrastructures, capacities, parkland availability, the adequacy of parkland, traffic issues, all the normal things that you would see in a secondary planning kind of process that the community association rightfully points out has not been carried out. I'm just maybe looking for a little further explanation as to how planning staff sees this doubling of density in this community in the absence of that kind of study being appropriate.
Ms. Ramirez, I believe those comments are directed your way, so go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So staff did follow up with policy on when a secondary plan was coming, because I wanted to see if there was any time set. The answer I got back was that it will be likely next term of council, and they have not identified which plans will proceed in what order of priority. So that's the first thing regarding the secondary plan. The second thing I would say is that grading and drainage and stormwater, those are items that are reviewed as part of the building permit. So when these applications go for building permit, the grading and drainage is reviewed, and separate servicing is required for each lot. And so that is reviewed during the building permit. We have flagged the lack of cash in lieu to the to staff who are working on revising the cash in lieu of, or sorry, the parkland dedication bylaw. So we have brought those concerns to staff, and they are working on a new parkland dedication bylaw. So we have communicated those concerns. The official plan does direct us to intensification. And so I would say that staff is aware that there is concern in the community, and we've shared those concerns with the other areas of the department. And as I said, grading and drainage is reviewed as part of the building permits.
All right, thank you. Mr. White?
Madam Chair, if I just could comment with respect to the grading and drainage review at building permit time. That's only review with respect to the individual lot that's subject to the building permit application. It's not the kind of comprehensive review of the adequacy of services in the community to accommodate the kind of development that's resulting from approval, doubling of the densities that we're doing here. And again, I don't believe we've heard anything with respect to that kind of a look at the capacities in this neighborhood. So I stand with the community in terms of those concerns, and my dissent on these applications at this point in time.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. I did want to ask you, Ms. Ramirez, though, as part of the technical circulation of the applications, do they not go to our servicing people for comments?
So they go, thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Our engineers do provide us comments on applications, and they are also ones reviewing building permits. The engineers can reach out to asset management where they have concerns. And so for some communities, they do that and get more information from asset management if there are areas where there are lots of drainage concerns.
All right, but in this area, this particular neighborhood, they're not going to get that additional information, or because they're not as concerned? Is that what I'm hearing?
I haven't typically, I haven't gotten anything from the engineers that raise really big alarm bells. Right. I know that there was discussion before about how my understanding is that when new development occurs, it separates the, they're not my understanding is that right now there's combined sewers for existing houses. And so when you get new development, there's that separation of overland flow drainage from it's not going into the same system anymore, so that it doesn't overflow our sewers.
Okay, all right. So let's add that one, Mr. Garnett, to our list of things that we want clarification at our next committee of the whole meeting. So I'm not going to belabor it with you, Ms. Ramirez, but we do want to get a little more clarity about that. Our understanding, at least my understanding, was that the technical circulation included a review from our infrastructure people, and that they looked at the cumulative impacts. If that's not the case, then we need to understand that. So, okay, so good comments from everyone on that. Let's get a little more information so that we, as we move forward. Okay, thanks. Okay, any other questions from anyone or comments on the application? We didn't get any further members of the public, so we could go to a vote. Minor variance for lot area, width, I think is all it is for this one. All right, well, I'm not hearing anybody with any additional questions or comments. So Mr. Segreto, because there's no other things to talk with you about. There are no housekeeping changes, nothing. So let's vote. All those in favor of the application? All right, so there, for the record, 4 of the members are in support of the application, so the application is granted. We do have a dissent, which is Mr. White. Mr. White, did you want to just very briefly?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, again, it's my opinion that these applications are premature in the absence of a proper zoning and comprehensive planning review of the area, including infrastructure capacity, considerations, parkland, et cetera, and all those issues that have been identified by the community association. My opinion, the application as it stands today is not minor in terms of the existing zoning provisions and is not consistent with the general purpose intent of the existing zoning provisions of the bylaw, which haven't been revised since 1962. Therefore, I'm dissenting on the approval of this application.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. With that, Mr. Segreto, I think that completes our discussion on your application.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Segreto. Okay, so we're on to applications 3 and 4 for 2469 Chasseur Avenue. I'm looking for Mr. Michael Ray. Coordinators, do we have Mr. Yes, we do. Okay, there we go. Mr. Ray?
There we go.
Good evening.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
All right, so we're not going to require a presentation from you, but I do need to read something to you before we go too far. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was first posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was at all times visible and legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear.
You swear? Okay, terrific. We do have a housekeeping amendment to undertake to your notice. My understanding has to do with the legal description. So we're changing the description to parts 1 to 4 on the draft 4R plan filed. Wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So we've got some comments from staff. I might need your help, Ms. Cully, on this. Yeah, so the notice, Ms. Kelly, am I reading this correctly? So I'm looking at consent is required for the following as part of the notice.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is what is listed on the public notice. So it's copied and pasted directly from the notice. It had said parts 1 and 2 on the draft 4R plan, but there are 4 parts on the draft 4R plan. So it wanted to be clarified to have 1, 2, 4. And then there is further clarification to the type of dwelling unit that's being proposed, because the language is slightly confusing, not a huge thing, but something that was altered.
All right, okay, just let me catch up here. That's also in your comments? Yes, okay, I see that, the description under the municipal address. So, Mr. Ray, have you seen those changes, and can you confirm that you're in agreement with them?
I can confirm. Yeah, it's parts 1 through 4.
Okay, all right, and you're okay with the changes, the wording changes to the description
Yes.
of the municipal, sorry, going back, I have to flip back and forth here. Yeah, the municipal address. So we were saying
Yeah.
we're proposing a semi-detached dwelling unit. Okay. All right, so we're striking those words, the 1/2 of the, and for both. I just need to do that for the record. I know it seems silly, but it does need to be on the record. Okay, excellent. We're going to go directly to questions from the committee on this. So committee members, anyone have any questions for Mr. Ray about this? The unit is under construction, Mr. Ray, just remind me.
No, it's not under construction. No.
So it's being proposed. Okay. Yeah, okay. No questions? All right, I'm going to go to the to my list, and I actually have, do I have anyone? No, so I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this application? Now is your chance. We got to give it a minute. All right, so there's none there, nobody coming forward. So, Mr. White, I was going to go into the conditions. Is it about the conditions? Because that was sort of the next place where I was going.
No, Madam Chair, just I noticed that the Heron Park Community Association had submitted a written comment that they would request that our approval include something to ensure that the final site plan is not substantially different from the one that has been submitted in the support of the application. I'm not sure that that's necessarily appropriate for us to do in this case, being that we're only dealing with a lot area and lot width minor variances. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yes.
I think the security of the setback provisions and height limitations under the zoning bylaw are sufficient to address, I think, what the Heron Park Community Association has expressed interest in.
I would agree with you, Mr. White, because at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is relatively simple. And of course, whatever we approve here with regards to the division, the subdivision that's being proposed has to see exactly as approved. So there's really nothing for us to generally provide, so I agree with you on that. No issues at all.
And okay. I just think it's important that the community association recognize that we have considered that submission.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That is good. We've got it on the record. So yeah, very good. Ms. Willis, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for staff regarding condition number 7. My recollection from previous applications is that an asphalt overlay is required if there are 3 or more road cuts required as a result of the development proposal. And I don't see that written in this condition. I'm just wondering whether you can confirm whether that is the case, or do you already know that there are 3 or more road cuts in this instance?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is typically included in the condition. And my understanding would be that when it was reviewed by the engineer reviewing the plans, that would have been anticipated that it would have been 3 or more cuts. And that's why the condition would be worded in that way.
So if it turned out that through the processing of this application that there were only, say, 2 road cuts, then the condition would not apply?
There would be ways for them to clear the condition, is my understanding, because they're reviewing it at the grading and servicing portion of the building permit, or grading servicing if they're submitting it for the other conditions, not even at building permit. So when they're reviewing that, that's when they would check for the number of asphalt cuts and they would clear the condition accordingly.
So would it not make more sense to keep the wording the way it used to be, that if it was more than 3, so there's no confusion on the part of the applicant? Actually, I didn't ask the applicant whether he had any problem with the condition, and perhaps he could address whether or not there are 3 road cuts. But typically I would feel better with it in, so it's not a condition that has to be discussed a lot if the short answer is there are not more than 3 road cuts. So I wonder if the applicant can explain how many road cuts he expects.
I expect 2, but we'll, I guess, if it is going to be more, if it ends up being more than that, then I understand the condition.
Yeah, my concern is that if there are only 2, the condition says you will be doing an overlay.
Right.
And that's not what it really means, is from what Ms. Cully is saying. So I would feel better if it says something about that in the condition, so that it's not, there's no argument about it.
All right, so, sorry, Ms. Willis, what number was that again?
Number 7.
That's why I couldn't find it. It's on the next page. Okay, so what you're suggesting then is that we would add something about 3 or more road cuts.
Yes.
So
yes, and it's typical wording. We've done it many, many times in the past. That's why I thought maybe there was a change in policy, but I gather not.
Right. And I don't have one of those other ones before me, so
Okay.
I'm gonna have to, go ahead. You tell me where you think we should add some words.
Okay, so I would say after the bolded thing, to require that an asphalt overlay will be installed if 3 or more road cuts are required at the expense of the owner.
I'm good with that. Ms. Cully, can you confirm that you're also good with that?
Madam Chair, yes, it is common. It must have just been an abundance of caution from the engineer, would be my understanding.
Okay. And I think I saw most members of the panel say they're good with it too. All right, then let's make that change. We have another change, I think, to propose. And Ms. Cully, maybe you can explain this to me. Condition number 10 and condition number 2 looked pretty much the same, save and except that number 10 seems to come from our friends in building services. So would it be possible to just collapse for number 2, I think it was 2, the words where we would say it has to be to the satisfaction of essentially development review manager, and then all of the words that come after that, and to the satisfaction of the chief building official or his or her designate? Can we just not add that? And would that not kind of do it all for us?
Through you, Madam Chair, I understand the wording of the conditions is standard and they were provided by different groups. I did mention that it seemed like it was a repetition to the senior planner who reviewed the report, and out of an abundance of caution, she wanted to have them separate in the event that the building code has a different process to approve and it wasn't being held up with one condition not being approved and another condition. It's just cleaner if it's going to one person and then to another person, is my understanding.
So, Mr. Ray, are you okay with that then? You understand that that's what's going to happen. It's the same issue, but it's being seen and signed off by 2 different people?
Right, we'll essentially have to submit the same information to 2 groups.
So, and if you're okay with that, we're not totally okay with that, I don't think.
I mean, the amount of extra legwork isn't that crazy, but I understand if we can limit it to 1 group, that would be great.
So I think so we're going to deal with this issue, but I don't think we can deal with it squarely this evening. But okay. Mr. Garnett, add that to the list, right? So what
the list.
The list. So, Mr. Garnett, the idea being that where we see what appears to be redundancy, that they just simply make it clear that here are the 2 groups that who do you have to satisfy, and that rather than having us try to figure out every time whether or not these things are related or distinctly different, or so that'll be a question to our planning friends with regards to how we might be able to streamline that. So, okay, And there are many other conditions, Mr. Ray. Are there any that you would like to raise for discussion?
No. All at
Okay,
once.
so you're in support of all of them. You understand what they mean. Okay. All right. Well, if that's the case, then I think we can go to vote on this. So on the consent, all those in favor? Okay, for the record, the consent is granted unanimously. And on the minor variance, all those in favor? All right, okay. For the record, the application is granted unanimously. So with that, then, Mr. Ray, we wish you good luck with your project.
Greatly appreciate it. Good evening.
You too. Bye now. All right, so we're going to number 6. And it's for 1487 Morissette Avenue, looking for, again, Mr. Ireland, if you can come back to us.
Yes, I'm here.
Evening. So I'm going to need to read to you before we get going. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
Yes, I affirm that to be true.
All right, thank you very much. Not looking for a presentation on this one. We do have a very minor notice amendment from what I can tell. So we're striking P&R Builders Limited and we're replacing with P. and R. Builders Limited, all spelled out. You okay with that?
Correct. Yes, thank you for that.
All right, excellent. So with that, members of the committee, any questions for Mr. Ireland on this application? All right, not seeing any questions from the committee. I need to consult my own notes here to make sure I don't have questions, but don't think so. All right, in which case we can go to the speakers list and see what we've got. There's no one registered to speak on this item this evening. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this application? Now's your chance. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward, so I think we can move to a vote on this one. All those in favor? All right, okay, for the record, the consent application is unanimously granted. There are a number of conditions, Mr. Ireland. Did you want to raise any of those?
No, we're okay with those conditions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much then.
Right, thank you.
Okay, I think I need to go to number 5. Somehow I got ahead in number 6, so sorry about that. Looking for back to 163 Long Prairie, Mr. Farah. Yeah, well, I can see that. Mr. Farah is there. Mr. Farah, can you turn your mic on, your camera? Mr. Farah? Mr. Farah, can we hear from you, please? All right. Coordinators, are you getting any messages from Mr. Farah about having any connectivity issues?
No, he hasn't reached out at all, but I can suggest that he phone in using the telephone number provided on his invitation.
So Mr. Farah's hand is up from what I can tell, so thank you for that. But Mr. Farah, can you unmute your mic? All right. Okay, can't seem to get any connection with Mr. Farah. So what we'll do is we'll step this one down. I would suggest if you can hear me, Mr. Farah, that you maybe back out of this session and reconnect, and maybe you'll have better luck. Okay, I think that's what he's decided to do. All right, so let's go to number 8 in that case. Which is 900 Waters Road. And I believe I'm looking for Ms. Tamara Nahal.
Hello again.
Hello. It didn't take too long, did it, to get to this application anyway. All right, I do need to read to you again on this. And good evening, Mr. Black. You're here for support, are you?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, excellent. Okay, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was legible and visible for the entirety of that time? You either swear or affirm that to be true.
I do so swear.
All right, thanks so much for that. I think in this one then, oh wait, housekeeping. Let me just get to some housekeeping. So on the legal description, let me just go to the notice here to make sure I have it. So what we're revising is, it's part of block 89. We're adding block 90, although it's there, 89 and 90, plan 4M 844 instead of 488. Is that correct?
Kyle, I see you're on the call. Do you have any recollection if that's the correct legal description for the site?
I can look it up. What was the new plan number?
4M 844.
Okay,
So Mr.
if we can come back to this, I can look it up.
Yeah, in the meantime, we can maybe even start with a presentation from Ms. Nahal. So Mr. Kazda, I don't have your name. Do I? Hang on. Oh, I do. Yes, I do. Okay. Sorry, you're representing Taggart. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So while you're looking that up, Ms. Nahal, please proceed with your presentation.
Great. Thank you. Oh, and there it is. Perfect. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So this application is for minor variances to permit the construction of a retail shopping center and associated parking lot located at 900 Waters Road. The subject site currently has a retail shopping center that was developed in the mid-2000s, and a portion of the lands were reserved for future development. The relocation of Trim Road around 2014 created additional development space along the eastern frontage. And the current application seeks to permit the rounding out of the retail center's development to complete the balance of the site, which you can see on the screen here. There's a vacant parcel to the north and east. And the proposed development includes 3,017 square meter retail food store and a 430 square meter restaurant, together with their associated surface parking areas. Next slide, please. So the subject site is located in the Cardinal Creek neighborhood of Orleans, shown on the map here with a pin drop. Next slide, please. And the subject site has frontage on both Trim Road and Waters Road, with Trim Road being the front yard and Waters Road being the corner side yard. Next slide, please. And so the requested minor variances are shown on the screen. So there are 3 in total. The minimum width of the landscaped area abutting a street and landscape buffer abutting a street for a parking lot containing 100 or more parking spaces. So for both of those, the required is 3 meters and the provided is 2.3. And the third minor variance we are seeking is to have a reduction in the minimum front yard setbacks. So required is 20 meters and we are proposing 13.62. Next slide, please. So the proposed development will include a retail food store, a Fresh Co, and a restaurant with a drive-through, a McDonald's. And there are 154 parking spaces proposed. 124 are required by the zoning bylaw, and 148 are required based on the leases that Taggart has the leasing obligations to the tenants. Next slide, please. And on the screen now is the site plan. It shows the proposed food store on the north side of the property. Yes, because north is to the left. And the proposed fast food restaurant, which is on the east side of the property. Next slide, please. So the one of the minor variances, or sorry, two of the minor variances are regarding the landscaped area, and I've shown the two locations where that would apply. So the landscaped area on the site generally complies with the requirements in the zoning bylaw, but there are two locations where we are seeking relief from the required 3-meter landscape buffer. One is to permit a parking space. That's the one a little bit lower on the zoomed out section. And one is to just ensure that the drive aisle is of an appropriate size so that vehicles can make it around the corner. Next slide, please. And the second minor variance is to seek relief for the front yard setback. So due to the multiple easements, there are a limited number of locations to place the restaurant. So the current proposed location is on the east side of the site along Trim Road. Other locations were investigated for the restaurant, but due to that 20-meter front yard setback, if we were to ensure that we respected that 20-meter front yard setback, it would have resulted in a substandard parking lot and drive-through layout, and essentially would have orphaned the restaurant sort of in the middle of a sea of parking. So that's why we are seeking this front yard setback reduction. Next slide, please. So with regard to the four tests of the minor variance under the Planning Act, I'll walk through those very quickly right now. So it is our professional opinion that the proposed development constitutes good planning and meets the four tests outlined in the Planning Act. The proposed development maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan because it will round out the development of a retail shopping center and develop the vacant portion of the lands. The proposed reduction to the landscape buffer around the edge of the site won't impact the adjacent public realm, and it will still provide sufficient space for the plantings adjacent to the right-of-way, which is one of the important aspects of that landscape buffer. The proposed development also maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. So for the landscape buffer, as I mentioned earlier, the goal there is providing space for trees and plantings between the parking lot and the sidewalk. This is still maintained, and we've also submitted a landscape plan to show the proposed location of new tree plantings. So that intent is maintained. And the requested minor variances will ensure a continuous landscaped area around the entirety of Waters Road. Regarding the requested reduction in a front yard setback, this one's interesting because although the site has a 20-meter front yard setback requirement under the zoning bylaw, that seems to have been introduced through exception 1362, and it far exceeds the standard 3-meter front yard setback seen in the general mixed use zone. So we do argue that it maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw for that reason. Next slide, please. So the variances are considered an appropriate use of the land because the proposed development is consistent with the vision set out in the general urban area of the city's official plan. And that's looking at the current / former official plan rather than the one adopted in approved in 2021 last year. So looking at the official plan with the general urban area, and as well, it's also consistent with the vision set out in the zoning bylaw. And that's because it does not change the intended use of the property. And the minor variances would not have any negative impact on the character of the existing neighborhood. And it will still contribute to the desirable and appropriate development of the lands. And finally, the proposed minor variance is minor in nature, and it affects only specific locations on the site, as I showed in those previous slides. The variances aren't expected to generate any undue adverse impacts on the neighboring properties. So for that reason, we do find that the variances are minor in nature. Next slide. So that's everything that I have to present. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Nahel. That was a very good presentation. I'm just going to ask you to give us, though, a very brief summary of the consultation that was undertaken with the residents in the area.
So I do understand that there were notices provided to the residents, and we did receive 2 comments from the public. We have reached out to one of the commenters to respond to some of their concerns. We only responded to one of the 2 because we have been working to bring that site plan up to speed so that we could come and bring forward the minor variance. So some of the comments, we did want to raise issues that were resolved with some of the changes to the site plan. So I do feel that some of the comments have been resolved. There were some concerns regarding an oversupply of parking, but we have, between our original submission and this current submission, we have reduced the number of parking spaces very slightly. So I do recognize that there were 2 public comments, and we have taken them under consideration in the revisions to the drawing, and the team has reviewed them. But just trying to get all of our ducks in a row, we've only reached out to one of the two public comments we received, and we did invite them to speak with us if they had any further questions, and tried to answer a few questions they raised in their letter as well.
All right, thank you. And with that, I'll open up the remaining questions to the members of the committee. Anybody on the, Ms. Willis?
This is actually a question for staff. I'm just wondering if staff knows why there was a specific exception to this site, which struck me as being very odd to have a 20-meter front yard setback when we're supposed to be going generally in a different direction. So I'm just would like to know from staff if they're aware of why the 20-meter setback was created as a specific exception for this site.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I did look into the previous zoning and I couldn't find, so the previous zoning that was applicable under the former municipality, and for that exception, it referred me back to, for exception 1362, it referred me back to an OMB decision that had to do with the drive-through parking and that you can reduce it for restaurants that have drive-through parking, you can reduce the amount of parking, but this, anyway, it doesn't factor into here. I couldn't find any rationale for that 20-meter setback. I do know that the trim road was realigned, and if I were to offer a guess, it seems like, and yeah, so just I'll caveat that way if I can offer a guess. It seems like what was done was that the previous front yard setback was added to that trim road realignment for that, how much the road shifted. So that's my best guess, but I couldn't find much information to dig into. Like I said, that 1362 exception references an OMB decision, but that has more to do with the reduction in parking for drive-throughs.
Thank you. That sounds like a pretty good guess.
All right, thank you for that. Just going back to Mr. Kastev for just a minute, can you confirm that it's plan 4M844?
It is, yes. Yeah. The survey plan had the incorrect reference plan on it, but the official registered title is 844.
All right, thank you very much. So that's confirmed for the record. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. White, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the same question that Ms. Willis had with respect to the frontage on trim, the setback there. Unfortunately, I guess we can't track down another old Gloucester planner to give us the information, but I don't think it really matters. Just a question about with the reductions in the landscape buffer requirement. Are there any? Is there any preclusion to doing a landscaping on the city-owned road allowance? Maybe this is a question directed at staff most appropriately. And I'm thinking of street trees along the two frontages.
All right, Ms. Young, can you join us? I think the most appropriate person is get Ms. Young. I take it, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Yes, so through you, Madam Chair, I'm just trying to look it up right now. I believe there are hydro corridors on both Waters and the other cross street. So there will be some impact to the ability to plant trees. But I believe the landscape plan does show some trees, like if not in the right of way, at least kind of on that edge, as close as possible to where the hydro corridors are. I don't know if that answers your question.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions before we go to the public? All right, well, in which case, let's do that then. I have nobody registered beyond those representing the applicant. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this application? Now is your chance. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing, sometimes I see some movement, so I have some indication that something's coming, but no, nothing right now. So with that, then I think members of the committee, I think we can go to a vote. So all those in favor of the minor variance application? All right, for the record, the application is unanimously granted. And I think that's all we need to discuss. So good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to go
Madam
back.
Chair? Oh, we do have Mr. Farah on the phone.
Thank you. On the phone. Okay. All right. So Mr. Farah, can you unmute? Because I think you still have. Mr. Farah? Your phone is muted. Sorry, coordinator, can you please remind me how, if you're on the phone, that you can unmute yourself?
Yes, that's *6.
All right, so with the *6, then, Mr. Farah, you can unmute your phone. Okay. Is there?
Hello?
Hello. Thank you.
Finally.
Yes.
Hello.
All right. Wonderful. Okay. So with that, then we are going to, I think, hear your application as we discussed earlier in the meeting. I am going to need to read something to you, though. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
Yes, I swear.
All right, thank you. We don't need a presentation from you this evening, so I'm going to go straight to questions from the committee. All right, I'm not seeing any questions come from the committee. I do, let's see if we've got anyone on the speakers list, and I don't believe we do. So with that, then I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the committee on this application, either for or against? Okay, nobody seems to be coming forward. So Mr. Farah, there are a number of conditions that are attached to this application. You're okay with those conditions? You are aware of them?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, all right. Well, with that, then I guess we can go to a vote, folks. All those in favor of the consent application? All right, for the record, the application is unanimously granted. And with that, then, Mr. Farah, thank you for trying to reestablish connection. That's good. We're glad we were able to deal with your application this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good luck with your application. All right, then.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye now. Okay, we're on to number 9. which is 3035 Palladium Drive. Looking for Ann Curtis.
Madam Chair, we did receive this stat deck just before the hearing for this item.
Oh, thank you very much for that then. So Ms. Curtis, can you unmute and put your camera on?
Where's the camera? Oh, there. There.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to need to read to you before we go too far. So, oh, you did. Sorry, you just told me that we got it. Okay, great. Excellent. I'm on a roll, right? I get on a roll and I forget, even though she just told me.
Okay.
Okay.
May I just say Alex Turner is also with me on this one as my colleague. I think he's there. He's raised his hand.
Yes, yes, Mr. Turner is there. Mr. Turner, are you with Taggart as well?
Yes.
All right, okay. All right, so we just need that for the record because we need, I don't have you down as a speaker for this evening. So at least we recognize that you're with Taggart. So we have that municipal address, so we're good. Do need to make a quick change to your notice, the legal description. My understanding is that what it should be is part of lot 3, concession 1, block 2, registered plan, 4M 1566, except parts 1 to 4 on reference plan, looks the same to me, 4R 33022. So Ms. Cully, what am I missing here? Because they look the same to me based on the changes that the changes and what's in the notice look the same. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, I understood the notice to not include the word except, and except would take away the one property that has already been severed.
All right, so but I didn't, it's not struck out. So what is it that you?
It's added, it's bolded. It might be a little hard to see.
All right, okay, so that's what's being proposed then. Yeah, now that I go back. So can I just get confirmation from you, Ms. Curtis, that you're in agreement with that addition?
And no, I don't understand what we're talking about. The legal description should be block 2 of the lands, and then except parts 1 to 4, 4R 33022.
So the notice that went out to the public.
I'm having the same trouble that you were.
So the notice that went out to the public didn't
say except.
Yes. So for the record, we need to amend the notice, and that's so all we need is your and I think you have confirmed.
I see. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
It's just procedure. It's just part of, getting things on the record where we notice that there's some changes required. Okay, we also understand, and I did not get to see the latest revised report that came in at 4:42 for me. So I didn't get a chance to look at any of it. So I'm going to ask you, Ms. Curtis, if you could please walk us through all of the parts on the plan so that we fully understand what the application is about.
I think if we put up the aerial photograph that has the parts on the plan that we're dealing with, that's probably the best way to handle that. So this is an integrated development. Actually, I probably should have started with the site plan. Can we go back and put up the site plan? Yes, this is where it all started. This is an integrated development, and we are now dealing with block 2 on the plan, which is these lands here, which originally were the whole area was owned by West Ottawa Land Holdings. Then Cabela's bought this part, which says previously approved site plan application. And that was before there was any plan of subdivision registered. So that was done by a severance application. And then after that happened, the the first plan of subdivision went on, which is the plan of subdivision that we're dealing with now, 1566. And then the top part above this drive here up to Campo Drive, that remains owned by West Ottawa Land Holdings, although it's still integrated with all of these other ones. And then severed off from that and it wasn't severed, it was a block on the plan, is the rest of this, which is block 2. And that was originally owned by Canada West Centre. So they have been developing this, and they've been developing it by leasing some properties. However, if someone wants to buy a parcel, they can do that. So what we have is we have Princess Auto here, which is leased. We have McDonald's up here, which is constructed and also leased. Tim Hortons, another lease, just about to open. And then this was a severance application that we did about a year and a half ago, and is now owned by Structube. And there's a big furniture store there now. Blinds to Go, our present purchaser, came along and wanted to buy all of this. And that is the severance application that we have before you now. However, in doing that, we had to worry about the easements, the servicing easements, and making sure that Blinds to Go had the appropriate easements to go with it. So now if we go back to, you have to kind of remember that overall plan. If we go back to the aerial photograph, there's Cabela's and its parking lot, that big piece there. And the northern lands, which are not yet developed, although they're individual blocks on the plan of subdivision, so they won't need a severance application. Then all the rest of it is what we're dealing with now. And there's Blinds to Go. And if Emily, I don't know if you're doing this, if you can zoom in a little bit to see the parts better, I think that would make it clear. You know, maybe just move it. Yeah, there we go. So Blinds to Go is part 1 on the draft reference plan. And Blinds to Go is together with a drive aisle over these parts 2 and 3, which remain owned by Canada West Centre. Then if we go down to see where parts 4 and 5, now these have been a little difficult because when Structube purchased, and that's the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the plan that we were just talking about that are accepted from block 2, which is owned by Canada West Centre. When this was purchased by Structube, it was subject to access, storm, and sanitary sewers in favor of the retained lands, Canada West Centre. So now that Blinds to Go is becoming the, hopefully the owner of part 1, it's going to take over the benefit of those existing easements that Canada West Centre has. So Blinds to Go, by operation of law, is going to be able to drive across here, and its storm and sanitary sewer are able to go out to hook up to the main drive aisle and the main storm and sanitary sewers here. However, there's a little bit of land here that didn't connect with the Structube holding and those easements. So that's why we have asked for to include in this both an access for Structube over parts 4 and 5, but also the storm and sanitary sewer and a drive aisle for Blinds to go with what it's getting automatically when it gets part 1 from Canada West Centre. It's a little bit complicated, not as complicated when a year and a half ago we did permanent easements. I think we ended up with 14 registered documents. We had 5 separate applications to the committee. Though I don't believe it was panel 2. I think we appeared before panel 3 because they were not as busy as you were, although I think we're properly panel 2. anyway, so I hope that sort of understands. Oh, one more thing. When we were preparing this application, it became apparent that on the ground, Structure had built an access to connect its lands to the main drive aisle, which is all this going up here. And it wasn't authorized. So we're asking for a permanent drive aisle easement access over parts 6 and 7 to make it proper, I guess you could say. So I hope that's all totally clear, but we've been living with it for quite a while. Yeah.
Thank you for that. No, that was very helpful for me to get walked through on that. So, but I am going to open it up at this point to questions from our members. I may have had a little more time to dive into this one. Well, it must be really clear. I'm seeing no questions from anybody, so that's well, that's good then. All right. With that then, I'm going to go to the public portion. And I don't have anyone registered to speak. So I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who has an interest in this application who would like to speak either for or against? Now's your chance, just raise your hand. Okay, I don't think I'm seeing anybody come forward. There's one condition that I can see, which has to do with the servicing plan. Ms. Curtis, you're aware of that?
I don't know that you have to look at the report that came, just hours before the committee, but which is totally a revision of pretty much of their previous one. There are two conditions on that.
All right, so I'm going to ask, and like I said, this came in far too late for me to actually have had a chance to digest. So Ms. Cully, can you please walk us through this in terms of the conditions that applied and what we're now applying? So I only have one. Is that one remaining to be applied?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that condition has remained. The second condition has been added in order to address a concern that was raised through engineering. The concern is that there is a pipe within city lands, and they're trying to determine if a license of occupation is required in order to allow the property to use that, is my understanding. So there has been a condition that has been added to essentially require that license of occupation be reviewed and understood if it is required. And if it is required, that will be a condition to be cleared.
All right, and to the satisfaction of who?
It would be to the satisfaction of the corporate real estate office and the development review manager.
All right, okay, thank you. All right, any issues with those, Ms. Curtis, then?
I do have an issue with the first condition, the one which speaks to environmental approval. And I don't have any problem with that. That will be dealt with as a condition. But I did not understand why a development agreement is being asked for. It shouldn't apply. I don't think that the lands are subject to a subdivision agreement, and not only that, to a site plan agreement. There was a development agreement on these lands before the plan of subdivision went on, when the Cabela's severance was done, and it was a condition at that time that was entered into. But then it was also taken off. It was also a condition in the development agreement that it could be removed as soon as the plan of subdivision went on. So I'm just trying to understand why a further development agreement is being sought, and what the city would be gaining from that development agreement that it would not be getting with the site plan amendment, which would be required for the blinds to go construction.
It's a good question, Ms. Curtis, because I'm looking at it too, and even outside of any site planning, it looks like the conditions could be broken down individually rather than, and cleared without having to go through a development agreement. But I am going to ask Ms. Cully to provide some insight, if she could, please.
Yes, of course. Through you, Madam Chair. The condition is standard in wording and it's applied to all severances that are of this nature. The reason that that is typically included is to ensure that in the event issues arise that would require additional time beyond the lapsing of the consent to be granted, the development agreement would allow those things to occur outside of the consent. So it's out of an abundance of caution to provide additional time to potentially deal with those things. And the development agreement is something that can be discussed with City Legal Services and can be cleared in the event it's not required, is my understanding.
But there's going to be a legal agreement anyway with regards to the development, right?
Yeah. So may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, please, Ms. Curtis.
Yeah, the problem with that is legal services is overburdened and overworked, and the time that it would take. And first of all, I don't really understand what sort of things you need more time to deal with. Would that again not be covered by site plan approval and also getting the building permit being held up? What type of things were you thinking of?
So Ms. Curtis, you got to remember that this approval is coming in advance of the site plan approval. So when that happens, it's a belt and suspenders. So if something should go totally off the rails, the city still has something in its pocket. But typically, when we do have development agreements that we require, it's very tangible things. Either it's to ensure that, the right building elements have been incorporated within for noise purposes into a structure, or it's an overlay, or there's a number of different things that can trigger that. But what I'm not seeing is what is triggering the requirement for an agreement here that would be specific to that would allow, because the reason you go into a development agreement on these things is to ensure that at the 1 year, you haven't lost anything. You can allow it, you only have a year to clear these things. It's covered in the development agreement. It gives a little longer life in order to be able to do these things. So Ms. Cully, going back to you then. So we've got an environmental compliance approval. Like, I'm looking at the things that are actually worded within this condition. And I'm not sure that I see anything that couldn't otherwise stand alone without a development agreement. Thoughts from others from the committee? Go ahead, Ms. Willis. I'll come back to you, Mr. Turner. I just want to hear from the committee members right now.
I would agree that if you're talking about belts and suspenders, that in this case, there's so many levels of approvals that are required internally as well within the Canada West Owners Group to have to comply with the engineering conditions. So there's concerns about site plan approval and whether or not the services can be independent. I think the applicant would have looked after that long before now, and it's sort of a matter of I guess at their own risk. But I see no reason for any sort of agreement at this point, recognizing that any development on the property will be required to go through site plan approval. So I would support removing that condition if everybody else agrees.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wallace. Other thoughts from committee members? Mr. White, I see you nodding your head. Did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with what Ms. Willis has just said. Site plan agreements and other agreements required to permit the development will cover everything that's necessary.
All right. Mr. Hindle, Ms. Markovich, any comments from you?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think this is a site that clearly has a lot of oversight to it. So I think I'm comfortable with what's in place otherwise.
All right, Ms. Markovich?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also comfortable with that for all the reasons just described.
All right. So I think what would need to happen, just looking at the wording, and I'm truly hope that this is going to work because I'm still operating from the last report, but So there's a last two full sentences. It starts, the owner also agrees to enter into a development agreement to cover, with the city to cover these required items. I would suggest that we could simply delete all of that last phrase. So everything from the owners also agree to enter into a development agreement all the way to and written confirmation from city legal services that it has been registered on title, which of course we wouldn't need if we don't have an agreement. So we could strike that from the condition. Ms. Curtis, would that work for you?
Yes, no, it absolutely would. That's what I've been seeking. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any concerns from any members of the panel? All right. Mr. Turner, your hand was up. I take it it's on this issue. So did you want to comment?
I just wanted to point out that this site is already site plan approved. We already have a site plan agreement. It's all, and yes, they will probably amend it, but it's already covered.
All right, thank you. So for the record, we are striking the words that I had just read out a few minutes ago with confirmation from the applicant's agent. With that, any more questions, any more concerns? Ms. Willis.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering if they have site plan approval already, can't we just delete the condition in its entirety?
Well, that's a question then for Ms. Cully. If I would imagine that staff is aware of that. So Ms. Cully, can you tell me why we're going sort of one step forward or further here with condition number one?
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that the site plan control will need to be amended, as Mr. Turner mentioned, and there might be required updates on the Ministry of Environment and Conservation of Parks side that would be required in order to keep everything consistent. So we would prefer that would be included so that can be completed and the updates are all consistent with the property.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cully. That works for me. Ms. Willis?
I say belt and suspenders, but I'm fine. If the applicant's fine with it, I'm fine with it.
All right.
May I just say something? When we made the severance application for the 4 acres to the south occupied by structure, there were no conditions at all.
All right, but now we're different circumstances with different planners dealing with this. So Ms. Curtis, to be honest with you, I kind of agree with staff's position on this and their explanation. They're essentially saying, yes, we know that it was in place. Maybe it wasn't done for strict, but in their case, they're saying, look, we have enough concern about the fact that there may be some additional environmental compliance rules. We just want to make sure that we're capturing them. And I think that's fair game for me.
Well, fair enough, which is why we did we're not here asking to have it all taken out, although if anybody wanted to, thank you.
Yes. Truly understand that.
No, I'm not going to complain,
All right, we're going to let it stand unless I hear some real compelling reason from the panel members. I think we're going to let that one stand. All right. With that then, I think we can go to a vote at this point.
Chair, sorry, just quickly, have we read the amendments to the easements into the record?
No, I have not. I don't believe in detail, and I don't have them before me because they were late. So I would have to ask Ms. Cully then to read them into the record.
Okay. So my understanding is that for the first one I think they're going to pull them up for me. Maybe I won't have to read them. Clarification from Deputy Secretary.
I think okay, well, so how about, since I've got them, I'll read them because I think we do need to read them into the record, Ms. Kelly. Sure. So now that I've got them before me, I can do this. So, so what's being revised for number one, and all I need at the end of the day is confirmation from our agent. Number one, we're talking about parts 2 and 3, and we are adding for the record reference to parts 4 and 5 on the draft reference plan. We confirmed on that one?
Yes.
I'm going to go through them one by one, get confirmation, then we'll be done. On number 2, the easement for the sanitary sewer with respect to And now we're adding, in addition to part 3 on plan 4, our 33025, parts 4 and 5 on the draft reference plan. Confirmed?
Yes.
Number 3, an easement for the storm sewer with respect to parts 4 and 5 on the draft reference plan is being added before the parts 3, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Confirmed?
Confirmed.
The last change that we have is a full additional description. So number 7, a new bullet, number 7, an easement for a storm sewer with respect to parts 4 and 5 on the draft reference plan for the benefit of the parcel previously created being part of block 2, plan 4M 1566, designated as parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 on plan 4R 33022. Confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Garnett, does that do it for you?
It does. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, and thank you for reminding me. I would have done it if I had had it, I guess, but I forgot it. So, okay, with that, did we vote? I think we didn't vote yet.
No.
Now I'm confused. All right, so all those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, the application is granted unanimously. All right, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And last but not least, we are going to applications, plural, number 10 and 11, looking for Mr. Jean-Philippe Tala on 2 David Drive. We got Mr. Yep, all right. Mr. Tala, I see you're here, but I don't see you, and I see that your mic is muted. And can you turn your camera on?
What is that? What we do? Yes.
Ah, perfect. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. All right, so Mr. Tala, who is with you then this evening appearing?
Karin Diane Kwebungako is my wife.
All right, okay, so same municipal address, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, just for the record. All right, need to read something to you before we get too far. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted first to the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
Affirm.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to ask you for a presentation tonight.
Okay.
Have you submitted a presentation?
Yes. Yes, we can go to the next page. That is the can we go to the next page, please? Oh, yes. Yes, that is the proposed land. And so 2 David Drive is we purchased last year, and we intend to build the part 1. This start with the part 1 and build the part 2. If you go to the next picture, please. Next page. Yes, that is the proposed site. So we have the existing property just on the dotted line. So the part 1, we want to demolish the garage. Maybe you can see that on the next site. The next, yes, we have the garage there. And we intend to demolish the garage and build the first dwelling, and then get the existing bungalow and build the second one on there. Next page, please. So that is about the front of those proposed building. If you can keep going, please. Yes, that is the front. The part 1 and the part 2 is quite similar there. And if you can keep going, please. Yes, that will be the side elevation. So what I forget to say on the floor on the site plan, the minor variance we're asking for. I mean, I can talk about that later, but that is that will be the elevation. If you go to the next page, yes, the next elevation there. So it's quite similar. Yeah, please keep going. Yes, so we surrounding area, we request or we intend to build with access to the roof building, and we work around the area. So that is not in the immediate adjacent on the location, but that is about roughly 5-10 minute walk from where we intend to build, and they have the access to the roof area. If you can see on the 44 Rossland Avenue, and the next one, the 66 Chipman. I cannot see. I have a little block there, but that was one of the proposals that went through the city, and that was accepted a little while ago. That have all access to the roof area, and that is about what we intend to do. If you can go to the next page, please. Yes, so I just show that is quite on the David Drive. Similar lot, front lot side. So that is on the 29 David Drive. It was approved with a minor variance of 13.1 meter and 13.8 meter front yard. On the 30B David Drive is a little wider than what we have, but that is quite, we have a similar type of construction in the area, and that is about what we are intending to do in the area as well. So next page, please. Yes, that is here because we just want to the low or flat roof, and again that is on the surrounding area. On the 86 Roland Avenue, that is some existing dwelling in the area, and we just intend to get the same type of construction in our proposed location. Next page, please. Yes, so for the forecast, I think the general intent, the purpose of the location, we trying to keep that in our planning. We maintain the zoning bylaw, so on the single dwelling, and the variation on the building in that location. That is what we're trying to keep in mind when we're designing. And so the request we're doing is minor in the type for the lot width as well as the area that is not quite out of character for what we have in the location. Yeah, that will be, so that is the conclusion. Yeah, the request is minor in the type, and the design is not completely out of character since that is an infill location.
All right. So, Mr. Teller, can you tell me a little bit about the consultation process that you undertook to inform your neighbors and to
so
speak with them?
I'm trying to look at on the about the 17th in December, because we submit the first time in December. I walk all in the neighborhood. So the one in front of me, on the side, even on the back is vacant, but we let a notice there. So I walk around the surrounding, 2 houses in the left, in the right, and in the back, because the lot in the back is quite a large lot, and we let a notice there. And yes, I inform all those, and I did send email to the community association through the web page. I didn't get any response, and talking back with the city personnel, they gave me last week another email, a personal email that I could send that through the city view. And that is what I did as well. And I didn't get any feedback. However, the gentleman just in front of our location, very in favor of our project. And when I was talking with him on the weekend, he wanted to send his support to the city. I'm not sure, because that was already late, because he told me that he thought that was gone already. And when we was talking on the weekend, he told me that he might send some support. I'm not sure if ever came in or not, but all the neighbors, I didn't get a direct oppose on the project, but I know that I received some opposition just lately. But when I talked with all the neighbors, I didn't get any opposition on that project at that time.
All right, thank you for that overview. All right, I'm going to open it up to the members for questions at this point. Anyone any questions for Mr. Tala? Yes, Mr. Handel.
So thank you for your presentation. I noticed that you spoke saying that the intention is to build on one lot and retain the existing home while the construction is underway, and then build the other. But I'm just looking at the footprint of the house as it aligns with the parts 1 and 2, and it looks like the dwelling is kind of built on both sides of that that division. So can you tell me about how you intend that that's going to take place?
If you look at the part 1 of the building, you will see that the existing building, I mean, the lot is adjacent to the other building. However, the construction is not impacting. If we look, yes, if you can see there, you can see the dots. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse for the presentation. Yes, you will see there that the existing dwelling is not impacting. That is when we demolish the second one. That is when we will have a full lot on both sides, but it's not impacting when we're building the first and the second stage. We have about 25 centimeter difference between the existing and the bungalow while we're building.
Right. Maybe a question then for city staff, Ms. Cully. Would there be concerns in this case of creating an additional lot while a structure would be straddling the lot line that would be created?
Through you, Madam Chair, that concern was raised, and the comfortability that the city has is that in order to clear the conditions for consent, one of the conditions is that the existing dwelling needs to be demolished. So for all of this to occur, everything would need to be demolished, the accessory structure and the existing dwelling, within the 2-year lapse period of the consent. So if it's not going to be met, then it can't be built upon.
Okay, so then the consent would not go forward because the conditions would not be met in that case. But then it would be, I guess, a question then for building code services as they're doing a building permit application for allowing the construction of the new home that close, if it's 20 centimeters, as was mentioned, that close to the existing structure. That's a question for building code services then.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. Building code services would review that. And if they have concerns with the way that's going to proceed, then the plans would need to change and be completed to clear the conditions in order to have the consent.
Right. And then Ms. Cully, in that scenario then, would there be issues with zoning of having two detached dwellings on a single lot?
Through you, Madam Chair, there shouldn't be two dwellings on a single lot. That's not something that is permitted, but within the lapse period of the consent, there's the opportunity to build things. I don't know to the extent to which building code would approve, and I'm assuming if building code is reviewing it, then their concern would be that as well, and they would not allow that to happen without both being demolished. So that is something that has been presented to Mr. Talla, and he understands that is a risk that is being taken.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that's my concern there is if you go in, you get your building permit, build the new home, but don't necessarily demolish the existing home, whether in that interim period you'd have issues with zoning and compliance. But it sounds like you've thought that through, and it's a risk that exists for the applicant then to deal with. Okay, thank you.
Tricky sequencing, eh? So it's yeah, it's good that we had this discussion, because to be honest with you, I wasn't quite clear either. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, we can go to the public portion. I do have a number of speakers for this one. So I'm going to start with the City View Community Association. Ms. Wilson, all right, would you like to start? And then I can go to Ms. Pratt and Mr. Aruja.
Madam Chair, we'd like to go last if that's possible. If the other members of the community could go first, we'd like to follow up.
The only reason why I hesitate, Ms. Wilson, is that community association, what I like to get from you folks is everything on the table. Okay. And then if there's anything left, as you know, we try to get people not to repeat. So I would rather that we go to the last three speakers to fill in anything that hasn't already been raised by the community association. So would you be all right with proceeding?
Yeah, that's fine. It's just I thought it would be easier for the people that haven't spoken a lot to just do their things, and then we can pick up and we sort of touch base so that when none of us are talking about the same thing. But sure, we can go ahead.
Wait just a second, Ms. Wilson. Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no problem with the order of speakers. However, I would like to hear from the community association, if necessary, following the presentations from the other residents who are making presentations tonight.
All right, thank you.
I think they made the community association has done a very good job in terms of presenting the case, and I think if there's anything left over at the end or comments that need to be made or should be made by the community, I think I'd like to hear them as well if possible.
Well, what I'm open to is how about we'll start with the community association. That's always been sort of the way we've operated, right? So we give them, that's supposed to be sort of where a lot of that, they're the spokesperson. So we've always tended to use the community associations as the spokespersons. We always give everybody the chance to speak. But if you'd like, I have no issues with calling, Ms. Wilson back if she has any further comments to make.
Thank you.
So we can do it that way. I have no issues with that. All right. So Ms. Wilson, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to start and then Jill will pick up after me. So I don't need to say good evening because we've already spoken before. So we'll just start right in. The consultation process we wanted to speak a bit about first. The City View Community Association would have appreciated the opportunity to consult with the developers prior to the Committee of Adjustment hearings to express our concerns and suggestions. This did not happen. The applicant has mentioned to the surrounding neighbors that their community association is supportive of this application. They haven't spoken to us, so they can't say that, but they've been telling people that. We did, in fact, our first contact with the applicant was their email to the community association on February 21st. And our website is constantly monitored, so I don't know where things were sent before that, but it notes that this development is in Clearview. We don't know where Clearview is. We are City View. They seemingly don't know the neighborhood that they are excited to be in and to be building in. City View is a real community with residents who are deeply affected by this new build, or who will be deeply affected by this new build. We have heard from many concerned residents. The application, and we did speak to Christina Cully. She was helpful with a few points that we were trying to clarify. The application, from the first application for this property, there have been many errors and omissions. An adjournment was granted to clarify missing and erroneous material. The revised application dated February 22nd, 2022 came in with changes that created even more questions and concerns. Subsequently, on February 24th, we got another revised copy. All of these changes, some very subtle, are very difficult to follow and to comment on with clarity. We aren't professionals. We're becoming that, but we are not professionals. We try our best. We have tried to be clear in our logic and presentation. The planner's report, the application was adjourned until tonight as the planners had identified a number of issues with the plans. The revised planner's report received February 25th makes no mention of these issues and how they have been addressed. One would think that these changes would have been reviewed and referenced for resolutions shown in the revised report. This would have helped us to better understand the issues and process and not leave us scrambling trying to make sure that these issues have been addressed. Then we'll talk about the 4 tests. The committee is authorized to grant a minor variance if all of the following criteria commonly referred to as the 4 tests are met. The variance is minor, the variance is desirable for the appropriate development of or use of the property, the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is maintained, and the general intent and purpose of the official plan is maintained. These variances are not minor and not desirable for the appropriate development or use of the property. In a response from the city to the Committee of Adjustment on May 17, 2018, the city noted, generally new development, including redevelopment proposed within the interior of established neighborhoods, will be designed to complement the area's pattern of built form and open spaces. Where development is proposed that requires an amendment to or a variance to the zoning bylaw with respect to the lot area, yards, and or building setback or building height, and which varies from the established area's pattern of built form and open spaces, the appropriateness of the proposal will be considered in light of the following measures. 1, building height, massing, and scale permitting or permitted by the zoning of adjacent residential properties, as well as the prevailing patterns established in the immediate area. Number 2, prevailing patterns of rear and side yard setbacks and landscaped open space permitted by the zoning of adjacent residential properties, as well as the prevailing patterns established in the immediate area. The City View Community Association maintains that this application varies from the established area's pattern of built form and open spaces and does not fit with the prevailing patterns in the immediate area. We had a map that we sent to you that showed where that lot is, and as you can see from on that map, there are many lots in the neighborhood that are suitable for infills, but this irregular shaped lot is not one of them. This irregular shaped pie-shaped lot is not conducive to severance or construction of 2 oversized houses. This developer should have purchased the more suitable property if he intends to construct buildings for a freehold market. There's also a picture that you've seen already of the house that's existing there now. It's a smaller bungalow with a garage beside it. And if you take a look at that and then try and picture 2 big houses in there that go back towards the back because it gets smaller in the back, it doesn't fit. This proposal does not complement the area's pattern of built form and open spaces. These large rectangular boxes with flat roofs and rooftop terraces on reduced lot areas and reduced frontages do not fit with the prevailing pattern of the neighborhood. There are no similar houses in this area. The prevailing patterns established in the immediate and adjacent residential properties must be considered when determining the appropriateness of each proposal. The community is zoned R1FF. The AM10 zone that is referenced several times by the developer is the commercial strip along Maryville Road and is not residential nor part of City View community. The applicant references the lot for the property north at 18 Bain. This property, with its reduced frontage of 15.11 meters, is much larger than this proposal and is a historic property that was created when the street fronts on Maryville Road were closed and some residents on the north side of Bain were relocated. Our community has now seen several infills on narrow frontages such as this, with much community opposition. However, they do not include rooftop terraces or irregular lots. It should not, and they should not set a precedence. I'm just going to talk about the access to rooftop terraces, so the access hatch. The city consolidated all of its bylaws on September 8, 2021, without public consultation. Previous to this consolidation, rooftop terraces were not allowed in R1 communities, but these extensive rewrites have changed the interpretation of many of the bylaws. In fact, last week, the city identified a number of errors to their consolidations, including rooftop terraces, and they are now in the process of amending them. The rules for these rooftop accesses and terraces seem to be differently interpreted for each build. Perhaps it is the newness of the bylaw or builder manipulation, since it is unknown territory. There is too much left up to interpretation that seems to be twisted at each new build. We would like to request a formal review before this or any other application with rooftop accesses or terraces are approved by the committee. In these builds, we have not seen floor plans and have to assume that there's not an elevator proposed to provide access to the rooftop terrace. In this case, the rooftop access hatch can be up to 10.5 meters. For these two builds, you see an L-shaped structure on the drawings on the roof area. The builder states that the access is 6 meters squared, but that does not include the long arm of the L in the calculations. We argue that this area should be considered as it rises above the roof and is part of the access to the roof. There are no floor plans to confirm, but it seems that the part not included is where the stairs come up. We have been told that the access portion is just to get up and out onto the roof. So why then would a door not be at the top of this portion? The rest could be eliminated from these plans. These are questions we have taken to the city, and the interpretation was that only the area marked with 6 meters squared area counts. We respectfully ask that the city to ask for a review of this interpretation with an explanation. We also ask for a review and explanation of the interpretation that was done at 66 and 69 Chippewa. In that case, there was serious questions about the access area and the rules that should be applied. Rooftop terraces. On the original plans, the terraces for this application were closer to the front of the building, but in subsequent plans, they were moved to the back portion of the roof. This especially creates an issue for part 2, where initially the terrace was mostly hidden behind the rooftop access walls. With this relocation to the back of the roof, the terrace is now fully out in the open, and the privacy of the adjacent neighbors to the east at 22 Bain Avenue will be greatly affected. This similar situation occurs on part 1 for the neighbors to the west at 4 David Drive. We note that there are several roof drains on each roof. Would the planners please tell us where these drain to and whether there will be any effects to the drainage and infrastructure issues? The applicant referenced a recent plan that was approved by the Committee of Adjustment on November 12th for 66 Chippewa. That includes a rooftop terrace. Also referenced is a recent building permit at 43 Rosslyn, which allows a rooftop terrace that was at first determined to be non-conforming. Following many community complaints, some changes were required and the file has not yet been closed. City View Community Association still considers these additional structures illegal. These are the first builds in our community that have planned rooftop accesses and patios. Rooftop accesses are not a characteristic of this area or our community. The community opposes such imposing structures that tower above the allowed building height. This construction did not go through the Committee of Adjustment, the one at 43 Rossland, which the applicant referred to. But if you remember the picture, it's just a box with another little box on top of it. The front view shows this 2-story to the left of it is coming in way underneath that build, and the building in the back is way below it. I know this doesn't have a lot to do with this build, but it is quite a distance from the new build that we're talking about. And it does show that this type of build is not characteristic of our neighborhood and not accepted in our neighborhood and doesn't fit within the character of our neighborhood. I'm almost done. As noted above, the Committee of Adjustment is required to consider the appropriateness of the proposal in light of the building height, massing, and scale permitted by the zoning of adjacent residential properties, as well as the prevailing patterns established in the immediate area. In this case, these rooftop terraces and accesses add extra height above what is allowed under the bylaw and adds massing to these buildings that do not fit with the character of the neighborhood. Also, they will affect the privacy, peace, and shadowing for neighbors. Modern homes with flat roofs should have green roofs, if anything. We would like to know what important activities warrant the extra costs and loss of living space to support these rooftop patios. Perhaps a party space, perhaps a bar. They create privacy issues not only for neighbors, but also for the occupants. Considering that this application was intended, has indicated that the building will be constructed for resale, there's no good reason that access to rooftop terraces need to be included in the plans. These adjustments would not affect the developer's noted ability to capture the expectations of the largest market group. And just a reminder is the 29 David Drive that was brought up by the applicant, that should not set a precedence. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll pass it over to Jill now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. You've raised a lot of things. I've taken notes. We're going to come back to some of it. Ms. Pratt, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I just want to talk about the trees. As per an email from Forester Nancy Young on October 18th, 2021, for this property, no tree information was required. She said that I was on site today and can confirm that only the city-owned spruce tree, shrub sizes protected on the site. So if the current application will not impact it, no tree information report will be required. We understand that all infill applications require a TIR. If an applicant states that the tree will not be impacted, does this mean that no TIR is required? We would like to know. With respect to the driveway width, the city's driveway regulations, table 139.3, notes that no double driveway is permitted for lot widths or street frontages of less than 15 meters, yet these plans show double garages and 5 meter or 16.5 foot driveways on frontages of 13.50 meters and 14.13 meters, and a street frontage of less than 50 meters on at least one of the parts. With respect to the walkways, section 139.4b of the bylaw states that when a walkway extends from the right-of-way, it must be separated from any driveway by at least 0.06 meters of soft landscaping. Once the planners commented on this, the planner removed the walkways from the plans. We believe it's simple to add a walkway after construction is completed and approvals are granted. With respect to the rear yard setbacks in area, in the bylaw, they were not, we don't believe that the rear yard setbacks were intended for irregular pie-shaped lots that reduce the rear backyard widths to 6.94 meters and 5.03 meters at the back. The applicant has indicated the rear yard is 25% of the lot area for each of the land parcels. The City View Community Association would like to know if the planners have confirmed these measurements and calculation, as it seems unlikely that these areas exactly meet the requirements. Because of these irregular shaped lots, we cannot confirm the areas ourselves. With respect to infrastructure, city staff are well aware of the lack of storm sewers in City View and the importance of maintaining the integrity of the existing rural ditches for drainage. The city has advised that the ditches and culverts under driveways are a requirement of construction. This property has existing ditches and culverts. Much of the new infill construction and reconstruction is allowed to be installed without the installation of these ditches. Fill from basement excavations also used to raise these properties. The additional lot coverage from the large footprints of these homes and large paved driveways reduce the existing area for natural infiltration and drainage of stormwater and spring runoff. Our storm sewer system relies on water from properties and the roads to flow into the ditches. There are no curbs or collection basins here. This has contributed to a high water table, pooling in lower areas, flooded basements, or backup of sewers into basements during spring runoffs and during storm events. Many homes have sump pumps that empty into the ditches and flooded basements when some pumps fail or during power outages. Our original infrastructure is failing, and we're concerned that the existing water and septic sewer pipes will not be able to continue to support the addition of so many large homes with more residents and multiple bathrooms. In this area of City View at Bain and David, right next to this proposed construction, there's been major flooding issues for years. This flooding has occurred in basements as well as in the ditches and overflowed into the roads. The city has attempted on numerous occasions to remedy this, including last year. In our submission, we include some pictures that we took last fall of the city doing work at this location. That's all I have to say. I'd just like to thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
for taking the time to listen to us.
Thank you, Ms. Pratt. In fact, you raised a number of items that I wanted to get to, so thanks for that. And so I'm taking a list. We're going to get through everybody, and we'll come back to some of these things. All right. How about Mr. Aruja?
Madam Chair, he won't be speaking tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next on my list is Mr. Gervais, and I see that he's here. Ms. Pratt, can I ask you to put your mic on mute, please? Mr. Gervais?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can I proceed?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for permitting me to speak.
So, Mr. Just before you get going, sorry to interrupt. So, have you got many slides, Mr. Gervais?
I think I have about 5 or 6 slides.
All right. Okay. I wasn't aware that you had a presentation. So, all right, go ahead, please. Just a reminder that you have 5 minutes, Mr. Gervais.
I hope to be the shortest speaker. Will that make you happy?
Go ahead.
Those are not the images I would like to start with. Can we flip through those? No, keep going back. Yes, that's going to be the stop. No, the first one there. So I am the neighbor at 22 Bain, and that's at the corner of Bain and David. I'm immediately impacted by this this construction. I'm not against the development of tearing down the garage in this house, as long as it's going to be a single family dwelling that's going to be built on this lot. What I do object to is the major variant request to build 2 dwellings that don't conform to the street plan. The city bylaw requires 600 square meters per lot, and the applicant is short 173.98 meters, almost 1/3 of the land space that is required, the applicant doesn't have. Again, he's also short on the frontage where he's required to have 19.5 meters. He is short 6 meters. Again, almost 1/3 of the required. These are not minor variances. Again, when we get down to part 2, the bylaw requires 600 square meters. The applicant is short 174.44 square meters. And the frontage of, again, 19.5, the applicant is short 5.37 meters. Both of these, again, are almost 1/3 of the requirements. How can this proceed when you're asking for such a large variant? Again, they're not minor variants. And the applicant admits this in his own statement, which is on file. As again, these are not minor variances. The existing plan that you've seen in this community, and you can see in this image where the houses are parallel to the street, the one that's going to be proposed to be torn down, the garage next to it, and the other buildings. These are all parallel to the street. The largest portion of the street, of the building, faces the street. What the applicant is trying to do is rotate the rotation and reorient these so the largest length of the building is actually pushed back into the property. And this is how he intends to squeeze 2 homes into this one tiny lot. Can we go to the next slide? So everyone can see this, can see what we can see from our property. This is a mock-up of what the proposed building is going to look like. It's going to be 3 meters from that white fence. It's going to have a deck on the back, and it's going to restrict any view of me looking to the west. You will also see that there is a party palace proposed on the top, where these people will our sense of privacy and enjoyment are going to be completely removed for myself and the neighbor at 4 David Drive. There's going to be people up on the party palace. They are going to be making noise. They're going to be viewing right into our backyard. We have lost all sense of privacy and enjoyment in our backyard. The applicant indicates in his correspondence with the Community Association that he is concerned about the lack of affordable low market rental housing and has a responsibility to the community to alleviate this. Who can rent a $1.5 million house? Who can afford, what low income individuals are going to be able to move in to this type of dwelling? I am sure everyone is aware of the Ottawa Citizen report, Thursday, February the 24th, of the arrest of a gang member at 88 Rosslyn. In the article, the reporter describes the house as a boxy residence. Is this the future of City View community? These proposed builds at 2 David are very similar boxes. Are we going to be known as the boxy neighborhood? What's next? Why don't we just purchase a whole bunch of seat containers and pile them up on our property and bolt them together and build homes? There's your boxy homes. In the applicant's presentation tonight, he refers to the house at 88 Rosslyn. He's identified it as 86. It's actually 88. And that's the next image. If you wanted to flip to it, please. No, back up, please. Back up. No. Well, maybe it wasn't included. No, that's okay. So if you go forward, please, with the slides, operator. One more. All right, let's go back. There. So that's the existing dwelling. And if you go one more, you'll see what we proposed is the look of what's coming with the double driveways, the double garage doors, and how it's going to impact with the 2 driveways and how it's going to impact into the neighborhood. City View, may we go forward, please, to the tree? There. City View is an old community where invited children and adults can come and pick apples off of a tree in their neighbor's backyard. You see the two images. The one on the right is the apple tree in full blossom, and the one on the left is the fruit that is produced from that apple tree. This is the quality of life that we have paid for, and that what makes the character of City View the neighborhood that I want to live in. Finally, if we go to the final slide, operator, please, you'll see that there was a report, a 311 report for a sewer lateral inspection on my house on February the 19th, last month, as a result of the main line backing up into my house. This is the second time this has happened. The two new dwellings on David will drain into Bain, and Bain flows into Meadowlands. Can the city services support the additional capacity? No, because it's already backing up. You see proof here of the address, and the date is at the bottom. It's not visible, but the date is there. And this is a sewer lateral inspection. Madam Chair, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gervais. Any questions from the panel to Mr. Gervais? All right, I'm going to go to Ms. Teresa Paulasini.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of my husband, Ken Rush, who is also with me here tonight. Okay, so we would like, oh, okay, so I do have a presentation. Okay, this was actually some comments I had sent in with regards to the report, but I will reference those. So anyways, we would like to, Ken and I would like to express that we oppose this proposal. We feel that it will irreparably damage the the character of our neighborhood, as it represents a significant departure in terms of lot size and building form from the established norms of David Drive. So let's begin with the character of David Drive. It's between Bain and Rowley, it is an eclectic mixture of houses built over the decades. The mixture works because the houses are similar in scale and form. They're generally modest one and two-story homes set on larger lots. All of the homes have pitched roofs, facades with soft, gentle lines, and exterior finishes are generally brick or siding. The homes have large back, front, and side lawns, and they have ample green landscaping. The houses are generally oriented along the front lot line and do not excessively extend into the backyard. So if we could just flip through these photos, I'll show you. You can see that these are older style homes. They are eclectic, but that works. They're all the same form and the shape. Okay, so now let's look at the proposal. Let's think about what the proposal that we saw in the presentation. You see two narrow, very tall, block-like structures with flat roofs, upper level balconies, and rooftop patios. There are no upper balconies, rooftop patios, or flat roofs anywhere on David Drive. Although in the presentation you saw this evening, the applicant did show the first house which was Chippewa Avenue. I don't think that's appropriate to include because that property is 11 blocks north and over 1.5 kilometers away from 2 David. Similarly, the second one, the photo that we saw with the other rooftop patio, is 4 blocks north and over 6 kilometers from 2 David. And these properties, there's also a park in between David and these properties, which creates another physical barrier. As with other neighborhoods, each street of City View has its unique streetscape. The inclusion of those references in this application, to me, is not appropriate. It's not indicative of the streetscape of David Drive. As far as I'm concerned, there has been no attempt in the architectural design of the proposed house to blend houses to blend into our neighborhood. As the previous speaker has mentioned, the proposed houses also extend very deep into the lots. This will encroach upon the privacy of our neighbors, as well as block the sunlight to neighboring yards. Given that there's nothing to see in our neighborhood, we aren't close to the NCC lands, we aren't close to the river. It seems that the proposed rooftop patio and upper balconies really only serve to extend your outdoor living space. And a more fitting approach for our neighborhood would be to build a smaller house and enjoy the front and backyards like the other neighbors. The upper balconies and the rooftop patio will only serve to severely impact the privacy of neighbors. Thus, given the shape, design, and orientation of the proposed structures, these houses do not blend with the other homes or with the streetscape of David Drive. For this reason, we feel that the characteristics of our street will be irreparably damaged. Let's move on to our second concern. It is our understanding that the committee uses 4 tests when evaluating an application for minor variance. The first being that the variance is minor. We would like to know what criteria this committee uses in determining when a variance is minor, as we were unable to find a definition of that. We want to know how the proposal can be considered a minor variance when it represents such a vast departure from the established norms. The planning report indicated that the average lot size in David Drive is approximately 812 square meters, which is above the requirement of 600 square meters. These proposals will create 2 lots of approximately 425 square meters. This is nearly 50% less than the existing average lot size on the street and 1/3 less than the minimum lot size required by law. We find it hard to believe that 50% lot size reduction can be considered minor. When we look at lot width, the proposal will result in a 40% reduction width from the current average on David Drive and a 25% less than that is required by law. Again, we don't see this as being minor. Let me remind you that in September of last year, the proposal for 29 David was brought before this committee with requests for lot sizes of 416 and 418 square meters. In the committee's deliberation on the application, the committee agreed with the community that this request was in, quote, a new territory for lot size, unquote, and that the proposals would change the character of the neighborhood. The committee discussed the need for the city to update its zoning bylaws. However, you then went on to approve the application with the rationale that there is no reason why a single-family home could not function on the lot. I find that rationale disturbing and perplexing, as it sets a very low bar and does not take into consideration the neighborhood norms or the surrounding context, which I thought were part of the consideration of a minor variance. We are not against intensification. City View does have some visually appealing and appropriate infill, but this isn't one of them. This proposal represents a significant change to the look, the feel, and the character of the neighborhood. We are asking the committee to reject this proposal and any further or any future requests for ultra small lot sizes, since until such time as the zoning bylaw is updated to reflect the new official plan, or until City View has its proposed or its promised secondary plan. Once the damage is done to our neighborhood, it won't be able to be repaired. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Paolacini. Is there any questions for our speaker? Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. I'm wondering if we could ask the speakers to focus. We've had a lot of focus on the building design here, and really it's not a subject of the applications that we're dealing with. I think we need to have some more focus on the question of lot size, and I believe that the last speaker did focus to a certain extent on those issues, the lot size, the lot area, and lot width criteria that we are being asked to vary here in this case. So I just, for the reference of presenters to come, I wonder if we could focus more on that aspect, which is really the aspects that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. White. That's a good reminder. As you know, it's in our opening remarks. And so good reminder. We only have one speaker left, Ms. Cohen. Do we have Ms.
Madam
Cohen?
Chair, I don't see her on the call.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. In which case, I think that wraps up the speakers. I wanted to go back, though, to a number of things. And I guess I'm looking for, is it Ms. Cully on this? Is it Ms. Cully?
Yes, it's me, Madam Chair.
Oh, all right. Thank you, because I'm still not there. So I went back and Ms. Pratt actually went through a number of the comments. I went back to your previous report, which identified some of the areas where you thought, in fact, there were going to be some issues with regards to the possible need for additional relief from the zoning bylaws. I want to make that clear first, that there is nothing got missed. So we have what we need in front of us. So with regards to the rooftop terraces, they're permitted in the zone and they comply with all of the requirements under the zoning bylaw. Whether we like the way it's worded or not, it does comply with what's law today, correct? Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that is correct.
And the structures also conform to the height, so no height relief. Okay. And looking at the proposed balconies that you mentioned, I take it those were revisions to the plan, got addressed, and we're good. Okay. With respect to the soft landscaping, how did that get addressed?
Through you, Madam Chair, it was discussed with the applicant and it was determined that the soft landscaping is met through calculations and discussions with the applicant.
All right, thank you. With regards to the walkway, it was simply removed from the plan?
Through Madam Chair, yes, it was removed from the plan. And if a walkway was to be added in the future, it could be included in the soft landscaping. It's worth noting.
I see. So there's a way to still make it work. Okay. Rear yards, 25%. So did the revisions also allow for the 25% to be met?
Through you, Madam Chair, they were already met and they continue to be met.
All right, thank you. So in that case, we truly are only left with lot width and lot area. Okay, all right. Wanted to make sure we covered that. What else did I want to cover? Ms. Young, if we can just get you to come forward for a minute. The question was raised, when is a tree information report required? So recall in previous meetings in dealing with the same community association, we were able to explain why sometimes there's a condition where because it's tied to the consents and strongly recommended is for the minor variances. But when is a tree information report? Because we do have a consent here required.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Tree information reports are required for all applications unless I confirm that it's not required. So in this case, the one city tree that is protected is well outside of the proposed work area. So its critical root zone is not impacted by the driveway, by the services, or the building. So in that case, a TIR isn't required, but they do still have to protect the tree. It doesn't mean that they don't need to. They still have to follow the tree protection specifications. It's just not a plan. And they do still need to provide a tree planting plan as one of the conditions.
All right, thank you very much. I hope that that helps for our community association folks as an explanation. So thank you, Ms. Young. All right, there were a number of other things that were raised, but unfortunately they're not things that we can really address as much as we understand some of the issues and some of the concerns, but the design of the structures is not something that we really have before us. There's no variances that speak to the design of the house. It is simply lot area and lot frontage. Okay. Was there anything that any of the members of the panel would like to add at this point or have questions for clarity? All right. Okay, so the only other thing I guess that is really sort of bothering me a little bit is on the lotting evidence and how this actually fits into the fabric of the neighborhood. I don't believe, Mr. Tala, unless you have additional evidence, I don't believe I saw how this proposal is in keeping with other lots along David or in the vicinity. And before you answer my question, I do want to just have one other question answered by Ms. Cully, I believe, on this. Ms. Cully, I did notice that there are much smaller lots just to the, I guess it would be the south of Meadowlands, where Bain and Meadowlands meet. Can you confirm to me that that's in a different zone?
Through your own chair, I'm just looking at the map here.
That's fine. I know you don't can't have this memorized, the maps memorized. So, but I have a feeling that what's south of
yes. Are you referring to, it looks like 10, 8F, E, D, C, B, and A along Meadowlands Drive West?
Yeah, it's to the south. I don't
Yeah,
always.
it looks like what you are referring to. And it looks like it was subject to a zoning bylaw amendment because that particular section is zoned R3Z, urban exception 646.
Okay, so somebody specifically allowed for that kind of development there. Okay, all right. But I still don't see an awful lot of lotting evidence that gives me some comfort about how this would otherwise fit in. But in any event, okay. Anybody else with any questions or concerns or want more information about anything? We can go to a vote. All right, I'm going to call the vote on the consent at this point. So all those in favor of the consent application. Oh, wait, actually, sorry. I just a minute. Mr. Tell, I do have one other thing I have to do with you, a housekeeping thing that I missed. On the legal description, we're going to add part 1 on plan 5R 9250. Are you aware that we're making that minor change?
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay, and the other one that we're making changes to are simply the reduced lot area. They're minor changes so instead of 426.02, it's 426.1 for A. And on, and I think it's C, we're going to change it to 425.9 rather than 425.56, correct? Okay, I just wanted to read that in the record before we went too far. And I guess the only other thing, Mr. Tala, before we go to the vote is just on is there conditions? I don't see any conditions. And yet that seems strange. Oh, yes, okay. So the conditions then are cash in lieu. We've got the 8 in the report. Any questions about those, Mr. Tala?
I don't have any question regarding regarding all the conditions. So I read and I went through the scaling last time, and I'm aware on that.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that if you had any questions or wanted to discuss any, that we did that before we voted. Okay. All right, back to the consent then. All those in favor of the consent application. All right, so it's going to be 3 out of 5, so it passes. So for the record, both myself and Member White are dissenting on this. My reasons is I don't believe that it meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and I don't think that it is compatible. So I don't think I saw the lotting evidence that I needed to convince me that it fits. Mr. White, did you want to go on the record for your reasons for dissent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Reasons essentially identical to the reasons that I've cited on the previous application that we dealt with in City View tonight. I think there was a lot more focus on building design that really didn't need to be addressed in this situation. We're dealing with the variances on lot area and lot width. Again, I don't believe that this is the application represents a minor variance. It's not appropriate development for this neighborhood, and certainly, most importantly, in my view, not consistent with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw as it is currently, the provisions as they are currently written.
All right, thank you. Going to the vote on the minor variance. All those in favor? Okay, so for the record, 3 out of 5 members are approving, so it passes. So the application is granted. 2 dissents, myself and Member White, and I'm for the same reasons I gave, so I'm not going to repeat it. Mr. White, would you like to?
I've already stated my reasons. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything more you wanted to add. So with that, then, Mr. and Mrs. Talley, your application is, well, granted. Both of your applications are granted. So with that, I would just suggest that you continue discussions with your neighbors. You heard a lot of concerns about privacy. You heard a lot of concerns about the rooftop terrace. And so I would just encourage you, if you're going to be living there, you're going to be neighbors, talk to them and see if there's anything further that you can agree to. All right.
I'm open for any conversation, and I will keep engaged in the conversation with the neighbor. And yeah, that is, we intend to live there with our kids, and we like to be in a good neighborhood.
All right. Well, thank you very much then. And I think that concludes our discussion on these applications. Also concludes our agenda for the evening. So I do need a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Willis, thank you very much. Ms. Willis, you're always first on the mark. So moved by Ms. Willis, seconded by, I'm going to go with Ms. Markovich on this one. Okay. All right. So we are adjourned for the evening. I want to thank our city planners, Ms. Cully, Ms. Ramirez. Your advice is always very much appreciated, and we know we put you on the spot.